The day has finally come. The new DCEU, under the watchful eye of both James Gunn and Peter Safran, is officially open for business, with its first creation being an R-rated animated show for Max about a group of characters nobody knows anything about. I mean, you can't say they aren't bold. I was super excited for this DCU reboot because the previous attempt at a DC live action movie slash TV show universe was mostly a disaster. First, we got all of those Snyder abominations that gave us four of the worst superhero movies ever created, and yes, I am counting the first Suicide Squad movie. Then we got mostly directionless pandemic era and somehow even more directionless post-pandemic era. There were good movies there, don't get me wrong. First Wonder Woman was good. First Aquaman was super fun. First Shazam was decent. Birds of Prey is a super underrated movie in my opinion. And The Suicide Squad is my favorite superhero movie ever created. And if we include Peacemaker, one of my favorite TV shows ever. So it was only right for the person who made the best movie out of all of those and that masterful TV show, who we know loves comic book characters, superheroes, and loves DC, to take some creative oversight over this universe and to basically start it off both with this show and the upcoming Superman movie. So by the extension, I was also really excited for this show. I mean, James Gunn making an R-rated animated show about a group of characters I know absolutely nothing about under the DCEU? Yes, please. And the effects are good. They aren't as good as The Suicide Squad or Peacemaker, but they are still real good. Let me explain. Let's start from the main story, and it's a very rare case where the main story actually brings the show down by simply being decent. It's a perfectly fine main storyline. It's not spectacular, but it absolutely isn't bad. The problem is when you get thrown into a spot where everything else is on another level, you stand out a lot more as just being okay. It felt a little bit like a story was written in one day, which supposedly it kinda was. It wasn't supposed to hold that much weight and was mainly designed to give the characters, mainly our titular Commandos, a place to shine. Which it did, but it never made me feel those end of the world stakes. Maybe partially because we are just opening this universe, so, it was just okay. It didn't bother me, but it didn't grip me as much neither. I feel like part of the problem that is causing this is the runtime. I think for the first time ever I'm going to complain about the planned runtime being too short. This show has 7 around 20-minute episodes, barely over 2 hours of runtime, and it had a lot of things to both show and say about many different things, and because of that, while a lot of things worked perfectly within those time frames, some things, like the main storyline, kinda felt like they needed to expand a little more. Again, it wasn't bad, but it was kinda like a standard MCU movie from the good era, which is characters shine, villain maybe something, story sucks, but the interactions between characters carry it over to being good. Moving from the main storyline, let's talk about our main characters, our Commandos. This motherfucker did it again. He took a bunch of characters nobody knows anything about, he put them into a team, and he made us care about them, like no one else ever could. It happens every time, and every time I am still in awe. And the thing that I think separated them from the Guardians, the Suicide Squad, and the Peacemaker team is that they never really gel in the way those other groups did. Yes, they work together more and more. Yes, they care about each other more and more. But there isn't that moment when they become this one big family and they function as a one big family from this point forward. Some of them become friends, some of them grow kinda closer, kinda care about each other, But this team never really becomes this big adopted family Gunn is really known for in his superhero movies. And I think it actually works better for this story, because when you realize how much they care about each other in this case, it hits like a truck. I think they are going to make them the classic Gunn family in the season 2, because they kinda tease it throughout this season. But I think the fact that they didn't do it in season 1 very much worked to its advantage. And the individual characters are also excellent. To give a quick summary of everybody, Bright has all of the style, all of the presence, all of the charisma. If somebody from this team got a solo movie, probably a live action one too, like if they made, after the Superman, they made a solo Bride movie, she would probably be one of the most beloved characters of this first phase, whatever, act of DCEU. Dr. Phosphorus is an excellent character, and he is played by Alan Tudyk. So you know he is going to not only be amazing, but he's going to be both funny as fuck, which he is, and the scariest ever, which he also is. Nina Mazurski serves as the conscience and the heart of this team, and she does that role excellently. She was probably my favorite character from this show, or at least close to that place. Weasel is somehow both disgusting as usual and adorable, and I somehow grew to love him throughout this show more and more. And all G.I. Robot wants to do is shoot some Nazis, which is based as fuck. Do I have to add anything else? And I like Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr., who is supposed to take the role of, I guess, a Nick Fury of this universe. And in the show, he does an excellent job being both great at keeping the control over the team and somehow being the biggest loose cannon on it. Which, do I have to remind you, we have Weasel in this team, we have Dr. Phosphorus on this team, and Rick Flag Sr. causes the most bullshit. Technically, that character isn't a part of the team, but I will mention him here. Frankenstein's monster is the most unlikable, unbearable character ever, and it works excellently because it is exactly what he was supposed to be in this story, and he works very good. I wanted very bad things to happen to this fucker. There is another very big, very important part of the show and about our main characters, which is specifically their origin stories. Throughout James Gunn's superhero movies, always these origin stories were supposed to be the most heartbreaking parts of it, and they got more and more hard to watch, a lot more emotional and a lot more traumatic for the characters. You know, from Guardians 1 to Guardians 2 there was a bit of a jump. From Guardians 2 to Suicide Squad, obviously there was a big jump because that movie was R-rated and they basically let Gunn do whatever the fuck he wanted. Then Peacemaker was even more tragic. Then do I have to mention Guardians 3 and Rocket's origin story that at this point is legendarily heartbreaking, sad and tragic. So, for those of you who thought Rocket's origin story from Guardians 3 was too much, then I have some really bad news because oh my fucking god, the level of heartbreaking and sad Rocket's origin story is our starting point, and it only gets more heartbreaking, more tragic and more traumatic with every origin story. And do I have to remind you, we have 5 members on this team. Everybody gets an origin story. So yeah, this show is not for those people who said that Rocket's origin was too much, because it gets worse. It gets so much worse. They are all excellent from the emotional standpoint, but Jesus Christ, they are a lot emotionally. I was crying many a times during these origin stories, and I'm not afraid to admit it. The last thing I want to mention is the art style, or in this case art styles, and the animation, because I think that is another huge advantage of this show. This show, design-wise and style-wise, feels like it borrows from so many different places, and it puts it all together into a very nice and somehow very much working together package. You can see a lot of things taken from modern American 2D animations, some influences from anime, maybe some designs that look very old school but obviously modernized. This show feels like there was so much fun and fluidity in the design and animation departments, and I absolutely love it. It makes every single character feel even more unique, and it makes this show feel even more unique. Like it should be. It's fucking Creature Commandos. Animation style is a big part why this show doesn't feel like anything else that we ever got, at least from an American superhero production. Watching this show was just a pure treat for the eyes, and I absolutely love it. I need more. I just need more. In summary, this was just a very good show. A great cast of characters with excellent interactions and acting, and heartbreaking and emotional origin stories with passable main plot but excellent visuals. It is a very good start to the new DCEU, and one that makes me very excited for the future. In Gun We Trust. I can't wait for the new Superman and everything that is coming next. I would give this show probably a solid, but hey, if you disagree with me, maybe you didn't like this show, maybe you loved it even more, maybe you want to discuss any of the points I've said in this video, or you just want to share how you felt about this show, I would be more than happy to have a discussion in the comments.